Welcome. Thank you for joining. Today is Thursday, January 9th of NBDA. We are extremely thankful to our panel members and for those who are joining us in attendance for our quarterly meeting today, uniting our bicycle retailer, growing ridership and retailer foot traffic panel. This panel was formed in 2025. This is our very first meeting, and it's an advocacy effort by the National Bicycle Dealers Association aimed to unite the industry in taking immediate action to develop strategies that increase bicycle retail participation in the US. This is a critical and timely effort for the future of the American bicycle industry. Your presence today, the conversations we're going to have are so very important. Thank you for making the time. This panel will meet quarterly and come together, creating an opportunity for industry experts and retailers to exchange proactive ideas, ask questions, and develop solutions to grow ridership and renew interest in cycling. We want to focus on engaging diverse rider groups, improving the rider experience, enhancing infrastructure, and strengthening the engagement of your riders and your community to bicycle retailers and to our sport of cycling in general. There's a lot there. It's so important. The future of our industry really, relies heavily on this. So your participation today via as a panel member or as an attendee, asking questions, sharing ideas is critical so we can all get on the same page and move towards growing ridership. The National Bicycle Dealers Association, we appreciate the panel members who have volunteered their time and expertise to today's discussion. A lot of energy has gone into making this a valuable resource, not just for bicycle retailers, but the entire industry at large. Working united, we believe we can do so much more. If you're joining as a participant, we welcome your participation as we go along. You can place questions into the chat or the Q&A function. And throughout the event, the National Bicycle Dealers Association and our panel members will monitor their questions, and some questions might be answered live, while others are addressed back in the chat function. Now, the way the process will work today is we have several topics that have been presented, and as we move forward, some of our panel members will talk on various topics, sharing their opinions. This is an opportunity for people to share uninterrupted and without any, opinions being weighed on what they're saying. They're coming forward with their proactive ideas for solution, and we want everyone to listen, to digest, and to think about how we might agree or maybe disagree, but learn from one another. We're looking to work in partnership and create an environment that's very diverse, but inclusive and welcoming to all. So we ask you to be very thoughtful, very considerate of one another. We're all coming together, and while you might not agree with all the opinions, we're all here for a common cause, and that is to grow ridership. So I appreciate you your thought of that we're working in partnership. I'd like to turn it over to Bob Margevicius from Specialized Bicycles, who's here to kind of kick us off the importance of this first event, why this panel is so important. Bob, thank you for being here.
Great. Thank you, Heather. And, I want to welcome everyone and thank everyone for joining today's conference. And for me, it's truly an honor to be part of this distinguished panel along some of the most seasoned and innovative minds in the bike industry. So I'm Bob Margevicius. For those of you who I haven't met or don't know me, I'm Executive Vice President for Specialized. And like many of you, I've been involved in the bicycle industry for almost 50 years, believe it or not. So just digging deep into this subject, that since the onset of COVID, the topic of floor traffic has captured my attention. And I've closely monitored trends in purchases, sell-in, and sell-through. And I know that each of us has a unique story shaped around our demographics, product mix, customer base, history, brand recognition, and countless other factors that influence floor traffic. But today, I'm thrilled to share with you key insights into the broader US market, highlighting pivotal data points that paint a vivid picture of where we stand. Together today, you will learn strategies to build a strong foundation for the future, drive increased bike usage, boost sales, and ultimately enhance your profitability. So let's start by diving into some of the information, and let's take an exciting journey to unlock this potential. So here's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to just give you some insights of where we are today, some little known facts that may be interesting for everyone, give you some key insights into what's happening in the marketplace, some observations from the data, what to know, what to do, and 13 commercial rules. And I'm going to run through this quickly, and the data itself, it may be small for you to read, but I'll try and capture a lot of the details as what we're doing. So first of all, let's talk where we are today. So I've got two graphs and data points here. One is pedal bikes that have been imported into the United States from 2013 through 2025. So it's a 10-year period of time. And let me just capture what the details are. The details of this specific chart show that actual units of imports of bikes have declined by 39% from 2013 to 2023. And the average import value is up by 42%. 42% increase in the average import value. And a lot of people may say, well, what about e-bikes? What's happening with e-bikes? And e-bikes are a little more tricky to just understand how they're imported, because there are not as many ways of importing electric bikes. And electric bikes come under a personal mobility vehicle, which is any vehicle, two-wheeled vehicle or one-wheeled vehicle that's imported that's over 250 watt output motor or under 250 watt output motor. And from this graph, it's really not indicative of e-bikes specifically, but you can see that e-bikes, the unit increases have been right now 74% increase from 2017 to 2023. And the reason why it starts in 2017 instead of 2013 is really e-bikes just started to be imported in 2016 and 2017. And the other data point here is what is the average value? And the average value, you can see from 2017 to 2023, the average for over 250 watts has been 115% increase in import value. And for under 250 watts, 156%. So a lot of the gains that you're seeing today in sales and in the actual retail sales are driven by higher valued products. So, and I want to share this too with you, which is a little known fact about the bike industry. And there's been a lot of discussion about Section 301 tariffs, a lot of discussions about China and about what's going on. And these two graphs here are rather interesting to look at. So if you look at the one on the left, you can see that bicycle imports into the United States from China represent 88%. 88% of the bicycle units coming into the United States are coming from China. And if you take a look at the right chart, you can see that from the dollar value of the imports, 35% are coming from China, 35%. And the reason why I bring this subject up, or at least this matrix up, is as many people know, I'm involved, I'm a US trade advisor. And when the Section 301 tariffs were applied to children's bikes, I immediately presented this matrix, this graph, to the Department of Commerce and the US Trade Ambassador, because what they looked at when they were evaluating whether to continue with the exemptions for children's bikes is they looked at the graph that's on the right. And what they said was, wow, it looks like 43% of the gross dollar bicycle imports are coming from Taiwan, and only 35% are coming from China. And that to them meant that there was a shift out of China into Taiwan or Vietnam or Cambodia or some other country, and they weren't really looking very carefully at the units. And the unit numbers is, again, what a lot of what we're talking about today because of foot traffic. So I'm going to go through a few other things, just some key insights here. So this is the IBD, this is the bicycle retail market. This includes both rest of market, which includes Dick's, REI, Walmart, Amazon, lots of different companies that are in that. And you can see, and again, you'll have pictures of these, but you can see that between 2019 and 2024, actual dollar sales at retail were up about 6% from 2019 to 2024. And you'll see that the big increase was in bicycles. The top line, that increased about 13%. And service parts increased by 31%. So 341 to 445. And the other three categories declined. So helmets and shoes declined by 6%, bicycle parts by 7%, and bicycle accessories declined by 8%. And again, some more insights here, and that's what's happening with bicycles and bicycle sales. So this document, this information is coming from Circana. So this is bicycle unit sales year to date. So January through October from 2017 to 2024. What you'll see in the graph on the left side is you'll see that in rest of market, unit sales from 2017 have declined 37%, and in the IBD, they've declined by 35%. And again, the other picture to look at is dollar sales. So what has happened with dollar sales? Rest of market, which is on the right side, has declined by 5%. And from the IBD business, bicycle sales have increased 24%. So what's happened? What's happened? What's going on with this situation? So what you can see here from 2017 to 2024 is you'll see that the ASP, the average selling price at retail, has increased. So for rest of market, the average selling price has increased by 50%, and the average at the IBD has increased 88%. So you can see originally 2017, the average IBD selling price was $757. Today it's $1,424. And rest of market was $115, and today it's $174. That's a pretty significant change in ASPs. So I'll take you through just two more graphs that are kind of interesting to look at. And this is just inventory. And I love to look at inventory numbers because they say inventory is a lead indicator and sales are a lag indicator. So you never necessarily want to look at sales. It's not a horse race, but I identified in here three areas that if you take a really careful look at them and you see what the year-to-date sales are, and you see the inventory that's on hand in units in retail and the inventory that's on hand at wholesale. So you'll see, just as an example, for BMX, there were sales of 29,000 units, and right now there's 34,000 available between wholesale and retail. And in electric bikes, a similar situation, 10 months on hand. And on lifestyle and leisure, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this category. So you can see the year-to-date sales in lifestyle and leisure is about 32,000 bikes. And you can see in wholesale, there's about 55,000 on hand, 55. And on retail, there's 17,000. So there's 23 months worth of inventory on hand. And as we get into discussions on what's happened with the market, that's a critical one. And the other critical one, even though we don't have as much a challenge as inventory, is transit and fitness bikes. In that particular category, there's almost 200,000 bikes on hand. Year-to-date sales are 326. And if you take a look at some of these other, sorry, I don't have the other categories, but some specific categories, those are the two that have been impacted the most by the decline in actual sales. And the last graph, again, I'm going to show you is what's happening with parts and accessories. And this is, I know this information here is really small, and the data is maybe hard to read, but in this particular case, we only have inventory available for only retail. We do not have wholesale inventory. So in looking at the data that we have relative to the rolling year sale and the inventory at retail in dollars, and I want to clarify inventory at dollars. So I've taken the actual inventory that's at retail and I've added a 40% margin on just to give a comparative data point. So you can see in footwear, we have 12 months worth of supply. In parts, we have 10. In forks and suspension parts, 12 months, trainers, 13 months, and wheel parts, 30 months. So a lot of inventory of parts and accessories. And frankly, of all of the things that I worry about the most, it's the amount of parts and accessories. And this is directly related to foot traffic in stores. And as you know, there's a lot of impulse buys that happen when people come into stores and they buy a bike. And along with that, they're buying a helmet or shoes or a pump or pedals or tires or other things. And so where it's really been impacted is the impulse sales that have happened because the amount of bikes being sold, as I showed you before, is down close to 40% in the IBDs. So let me give you, what my observations summary from the data is. So as I said, pedal bike imports are down, and the important thing to know is they're down 6 million units from the 10-year average. 6 million. That's a big number. Average import value for bikes is up over 30%. We reviewed that. A lot of people say to me, well, aren't we assembling bikes in the United States? Well, yeah, we are. There's U.S. assembly remains small. And currently, the measure that I can use for U.S. assembly is there are 350,000 frames that are imported into the United States per year. Therefore, assembly, sales, warranty, here in the United States. So it remains a really small sector, and we have not transitioned out of production of imported bikes. And getting back to some other things, my estimate for e-bike imports, at least to 2023, 2024 is going to be somewhere in the area of about 800,000. And I estimate that 60% of those are Class 2. Most of them are sold D2C. And again, just to reiterate, China remains the major source for 87% of bikes. Retail bike sell-through is down year on year. That we saw. ASP for the IBD is now at 1,400. It's up 50% from 2017. Average retails for IBDs is 8.5 times the rest of the market. And I want to pause on that because in 2017, it was 6.5 times the rest of market. So the average retail at the IBD has increased significantly. Inventory levels within the channel for some categories is over 10 months. I mentioned that already. Sales of opening price point adult bikes, and that's ATVs, comfort bikes, leisure, lifestyle, are all down significantly. And a lot of that is a lot of the casual riders seem to have either bought e-bikes or, I'm a California guy. I don't see people riding around on beach cruisers on the beach anymore. That entire area seems to have slowed down. What we are seeing today, at least from the data here, is children's bike sales are slowing. I live close to a college campus, and I'm noticing that students are selecting e-scooters rather than traditional pedal bikes, and that also is a surprising detail for me. Parts and accessory levels at retail in many categories are a year or more. And I want to come back and say, likely this inventory, if you included wholesale, is really significantly higher. And I've been hearing this a lot, and I'm sure that Scott will probably dig deeper into this, but the secondary market through eBay, Craigslist, Facebook, and other informal marketplaces is really, really strong. And a lot of that is being driven by the fact that there's incremental innovation and higher prices. People are walking into a bike store and saying, hey, a road bike is, now $5,000. I can go on Craigslist or I can find it on the secondary market for a significantly lower price. So a lot of people are shopping on secondary markets. And we're going to go through these. What I want to share, which is interesting, some interesting data about 5 months ago, I gave a talk at the World Health Organization about cycling and what was happening with cycling. And the World Health Organization data has shown that global physical activity among young adolescents has dropped to 20% from, this is post-COVID, and it was 50% pre-COVID. That's a significant number. And the second statistic is that global adult physical activity has declined to 67% post-COVID, and it's trending downward. And the WHO has an audacious goal to stimulate physical activity back over 50% by 2030 for youth and for adults to over 60%. And I just want to clarify what is physical activity as far as the World Health Organization is concerned. And the World Health Organization says adults need to exercise 150 minutes of physical activity per week and youth of 70 minutes per day. I want to pause on a couple of things relative to the World Health Organization and relative to the bike industry. So here I was pitching, what's happening in the bike industry and what's going on. And I said, what the bike industry needs is we need to have infrastructure. We need to have infrastructure. And the woman, her name was Fiona Bull, she said to me, Bob, the fact that you have a fitness room in your house doesn't mean you're fit. She said that many industries and many people rely on infrastructure as an essential part to physical activity, but actually, it's not. It's an enabler, and it enables people to become more physically active, but it is not the reason why people are not physically active. So that was one. And the second thing that was also really, very profound for me is she said, the people in the sporting goods industry, including the bicycle industry, you are exceptionally good at getting people who are physically active more physically active. And you are terrible at getting people who are physically inactive active. And I have to say, again, a profound statement, but completely accurate, all of us. And I point at Specialized, we're out there trying to sell Tarmac SL8s and S-Works bikes. We need to start identifying ways to capture people who are not physically active, and we need to bring them back into the sport. And the last thing that I'm going to share with you, this little matrix that's down on the bottom, that this was in the Washington Post, I guess about maybe 2 or 3 months ago. Larry may have seen it already, but you can see the how children, and it specifically relates to youth, what's happening with youth as far as going to school. These are K to 12 years to 12th grade students. And you can see in Larry, in our era, 45% of the kids, we rode our bikes to school. And, today it's less than 10% or went by foot. So this is something that we really need to change. We need to identify and drive that. So my 20 minutes is up. I know we're gonna talk about making cycling safer. I've got a few things on that, and last thing I want to go through is what are some commercial rules for success for all of you, and these are things that really do drive floor traffic and drive your business reputation. That's, be humble, honest, transparent, and authentic in everything you do. Respect that the customers are always right. I learned that from a lot of people on this call today. Respond and resolve issues immediately. Seek perfection in every customer transaction. Mm-hmm. Embrace and be proactive with social media. Manage your customer reviews to protect your business and your brand. Constantly adapt and adjust to changing customer behavior. Invest in technology to simplify transactions. Embrace customer feedback. Adopt a missionary attitude and avoid mercenary actions. Recognize and reward outstanding behavior. Learn, unlearn, and relearn. Innovate, and innovate more. And that's it for me. You can reach me here at any time, and I want to thank you again for listening and the opportunity to contribute.
Bob, we can't thank you enough to our attendees, panel members, those watching the recording. We will have a link to Bob's slides. There's lots of information there that I know that you'd like to look at and spend a little more time digesting. Thankful to Bob to open up this first forum with that presentation. It really does stress the importance of this topic and us coming together. Those 13 commercial rules for success, I really resonate with those. And Bob, thank you for putting them all together and outlined like that. The NBDA will share later this month a copy of our consumer research. We recently surveyed more than 1,000 US consumers about their intent to buy, why they chose the local retailer, what type of bike they'll choose next, what services they're looking for, how they engage with our industry. And many of what Bob shared in those commercial rules for success, I see resonated in the responses that we got in that research. So you'll see that data made available free for NBDA members at the end of this month. So again, we will share those slides that Bob just presented. What I'd like to do now is move forward to our 3 topics of exploration. So we have 3 topics on the agenda, and how the event will work is I will read the topic question that was submitted to us from our membership base at large. Our panel members who have volunteered to speak on the items will have 5 minutes uninterrupted to share their opinion. And then we will move to the next speaker. We'll have an opportunity at the end of each discussion for an open discussion with our attendees and our panel members. And then we'll move to the next topic. So we have 3 great topics on the agenda today. So let's start with the first one, and that's inclusivity. When we're talking about growing ridership, how are we building a welcoming community? The question that was presented to our panel members for discussion is, what steps can retailers take to create inclusive spaces within their stores and empower the underserved voices through workshops, events, and community engagement? So if we're talking about growing ridership, we need to create inclusive spaces that are welcoming. Our first speaker today is Scott Fitzgerald from Pedal Kids. Scott, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Heather. And thanks, Bob. That was really great. I loved everything you had to say there, even the bad news, unfortunately, because it kind of aligns to what we're thinking about over here at Pedal Kids. If you don't know who we are a for-profit company that gets kids on bikes. I always try to stress that because we often get confused as a nonprofit, but we're trying to build a business model and a business case for cycling, specifically in the youth and family categories. So I love this topic. We think about it a lot. And it was interesting when I heard this, when I read the question about underserved voices. And I think a lot of times underserved voices can get us thinking about maybe marginalized communities or people without financial access to the sport. But I want to talk about some other underserved voices as we think about inclusivity. And I want to start off with just a reminder of some data from the National Sporting Goods Association. It's easy to argue that really in one generation, we've lost half the number of kids on bikes, according to the most statistically sound data we have available. A lot of times in the industry, we talk about data from 2014 forward or 2010 forward. But really, if a generation is about 20 to 25 years, it's worth thinking about where we were in the year 2000 compared to where we are today. A significant decline in the youth category. So when we think about those underserved voices, I want to let you know something you may not be aware of, but last year, the US Surgeon General issued a health advisory about parenting, the mental health condition of parenting. Parents are extremely stressed out these days, so much so that the Surgeon General thinks it's a national health crisis. So for those of you parents out there, you might be familiar with some of this, especially if you have younger kids. The digital childhood, the phone-based childhood is really grinding on parents right now, trying to figure out how to get kids active, how to get them off screens. A lot of the data that Bob shared about inactivity is resonating with parents. Parents aren't blind to this, right? But they don't know necessarily how to address it. And what we're seeing as an outcome of that is an incredible rise year over year in childhood anxiety, depression, and suicide. And these are big topics that are weighing on parents on top of everything else parents are managing these days. So there's a lot going on in this brain, but I think it's a big opportunity for cycling if we can align with these conditions. So, what's an underserved, community? Well, somebody who has limited or no access to resources, and resources does not have to be financial. Resources can be knowledge as well. We have this huge opportunity in the cycling industry that still today, almost every parent feels their kid should still learn to ride a bike. Bikes and swimming, right? It's a rite of passage. We've worked with over 12,000 families. We work with about 3,000 to 4,000 individual kids a year. And parents are still really interested in getting their kids on bikes. We work with a lot of families who are not endemic cycling families who come to us because they want their child to learn how to ride a bike, just because they feel it's a good thing to do as a parent. But I also feel extremely confident in saying that most parents feel like a failure when they're trying to teach their kid how to ride a bike. They really just don't know how to do it. They fail over and over again, even if they're cycling enthusiasts. And I hear from a lot of cycling enthusiasts that they give up on trying to get their child to ride a bike because they say things like, my kid's just not into it. Well, really, what's under that is they don't know how to introduce their child to cycling in a way that's fun. So it becomes full of pressure and it's a task-oriented job, and the child doesn't have a good experience with it and then says, I don't like this. And parent says, well, I don't need another fight, so I'm going to give up here. Every other sport offers structured coaching and support through the entire family journey into that sport, really, except for cycling. So what can retailers do? Just to keep it short here, retailers can welcome parents in through parking lot events and learn to pedal classes and be that category expert in trying to bring new families into the sport. And we can keep families engaged through ongoing family rides and things like supporting a NICA team. These are just some of the ideas. This is just a very high level overview here to just start the conversation. But leaving parents to figure it out on their own is really the opposite of welcoming. And I think that's what we're doing as an industry right now. We're leaving parents to figure it out on their own. So I'll stop there, keep it under 5 minutes, and I'll come back for the next question later, Heather.
God, thank you. Again, I love the data that our panel experts have brought forward for us to see. Those are alarming numbers, and we do need to do something about it. Some simple tips that you provided for retailers there. And I know we're going to hear more from you in a little bit, so I'm thankful for that. Let's turn it over to Larry Black, a retailer, Mount Airy Bicycle. Larry, will you share your thoughts on what steps can retailers take to create inclusive spaces?
Well, I really like the points that Scotty brought up. I'm still not sure what he does, sells bikes, children's bikes, coaches kids, but I do all of the above. And the inclusivity thing, I'm not sure if topic 1 or number 3, I melded them together, but I'll give my thoughts on that. I work with a lot of special needs and adaptive cycling, which brings special needs children into the fold. I am definitely a non-training wheel guy, and I will agree that the parents do give up first. Okay, when a parent leans over to hold the back of the seat, if that's one of the ways they want to teach them, instead of the handlebars, it's the parent gets tired of leaning over. All of my children's bikes come with a free bike school lesson. Okay, if they don't buy the bike here, it's $100, and I work with the kids one-on-one on a good day. We have a slightly sloped parking lot, really good for pedaling along. We've been selling balance bikes for, I guess, 50 years, because I used to teach them without pedals years ago. So to me, any children's bicycle is a balanced bike. I have noticed a lot more lately than I did when I was of the age, the preteen age. We've got more, and I was a child who's asthmatic. Unfortunately, kept me out of Uncle Sam, but I guess that's good news because I like what I'm doing. More asthmatics, more allergics, more kids on the autism and ADHD spectrum, which my daughter and I happen to be on. So we're very good at relating to that. And she is a children's research coach and dean of a special ed school. So we confer a lot on these kinds of things. I have noticed that a lot of the kids that nonverbal or special communication and on the autism spectrum, I can't help but notice the parenting having an effect on that. She agrees with me on that. So we try to include special needs kids. The bicycle, as Scotty said about being a fun thing, it is a very good bridge between non-mainstream and mainstreaming a child. And I have proven to much amazement to parents how when I get down there on my knee with the child and I get out and I ride a adult-sized balanced bike in the parking lot with them, we've had great success bringing children into the fold, as well as other special needs. I do hand cycles, I do tricycles, one-armed, things like this. I didn't choose these items because I didn't even know what the word niche was when I was niching for the past 50 years. But they told me what I'm doing is niche. It's not the highest profitable thing in the world, which is why most places that have a standard business model, which those that know me know that I am anything but a business model here. But as far as bringing everybody into the fold, the activities I do, I heard the word parking lot event. Every event to us is a parking lot because that's where we do most of our work. I have been a volunteer for 40 years in teaching adults and children mechanics, bike fundamentals, and I do a lot of volunteer work as a tech at special needs events. I try to focus on the special needs events. Face of America is our biggest one, and other events like that. And I don't know if this is out of order now, but once you display to a parent what a bicycle can do therapeutically, it is an amazing machine. I loved machines as a kid. That's why I got into bikes. I started with gasoline-powered bicycles when I was 10, and I was not an athlete, so I wanted the gas bicycle that I built when I was, I think, 12. And I just loved machines. And I got into, I guess I went backwards, cars to motorcycles to bicycles. And I consider that anything but backwards today. But when I worked with a child, the bicycle being this mechanical device just fascinated me. And that I could mix athletics, being non-athletic as the smallest kid in the school, being non-athletic, the bicycle is the great equalizer. And we've seen kids go from timid 4-year-olds go, my grandson is one of them, timid on a bicycle to mad boy on a bicycle in just 2 or 3 days. So it's amazing what that can do to bring a lot of these special cases back into the fold. And I don't know if this one goes here or not, but talk about the spreading of getting more people on bicycles. And I like the part about Bob and his right home about the non-athlete becoming a cyclist versus the high-end person. There's plenty of people doing high-end bikes. I sell some high-end bikes, but I like bringing people into the fold. Back in the 1940s and 50s, the NBDA, the Bicycle Industry Association, and some other Bicycle Institute of America would take full page or small ads and Look Life, National Geographic magazine. The President's Council on Physical Fitness did a whole lot back then to advertise bicycling as a way of life. 1940s and 50s, when the car was becoming king, the bicycle, little bicycle ads showed people waving on a bicycle, having fun on a bike. I just don't see that anymore. And that's one of the goals I have for the NBDA, and that's why I joined 15, 20 years ago, to try to get those things. And Mike McGettigan is no longer in these chats, but Mike was very good at doing public press releases. And when you do a press release, in the last 3 weeks, we've had some great news come out. Smoking 1 cigarette is 7 minutes off your life a day. It hits home to a lot of people. Number 2, alcohol is a big cause of cancer. This is all in the last 3 weeks, and they've made all kinds of news in the Lancet and others. And the fact that exercise replacement, that adds, that short ride can add that 7 minutes back. It doesn't mean smoke more, ride more, but you have to start your press release with something current. And I always start with economy, ecology, air quality, health, fun, fitness. I always throw those things as my lead when I do a press release. If everybody got together, James Moore was very good at getting articles in his local magazines. And as I say, we don't do a lot of events here. We do a New Year's ride, but I attend a lot of events as a tech. And every day here is demo day. I think I'm 5 minutes.
Larry, thank you. Lots of interesting things you brought up there. The adaptive, focusing on that and how that can expand. I agree 100%. Lots of great thoughts that you shared with us. Thank you so much for your time. You bring just such knowledge because you've been in the industry for so long. Let's move it over to speaker number 3, Marley Blonsky, All Bodies on Bikes. Love to see you, Marley. Thanks for being here.
Me. Can you guys see my screen okay?
It's perfect.
Okay, awesome. So my name is Marley Blonsky. I've met a lot of you either in person or on these calls, and I'm really excited to be talking about this because this has been a passion of mine since I got into cycling over a decade ago. Was how do we make these spaces more inclusive and more welcoming, especially for people who don't fit the traditional mold of a cyclist. So I'm now the executive director of a nonprofit called All Bodies on Bikes, and we are working especially for people in bigger bodies, but just to make the cycling industry more inclusive overall. So regardless of your age, your physical ability, your experience level, etc. So I've got some tips that I want to share. I'm going to skip this slide. Just know that our goals mirror yours. As a nonprofit working in cycling, we really want people to utilize their local bike shops and their independent bike shops because that's where the relationships are formed, that's where the knowledge is formed, and that's where community is built. And a lot of people today are really searching and really hungry for community. So I realize this is a wall of text. I apologize. I wasn't going to have slides, but I'm just going to go through these really quickly. So here's just some things you can do to cultivate inclusive spaces, especially for folks in bigger bodies. Larry was just talking about some stats from the Surgeon General that came out. And actually a really recent stat that just came out is 70% of Americans live in a bigger body. So that's considered either overweight or obese by the CDC. If you've heard me talk before, you know I don't like those terms. So I just say people in bigger bodies. And so 70% of the US. So there's a huge market here. So ensuring that we are serving this customer with respect, with dignity, and with the products that they need will help open this market and make it more inclusive. So a couple things here. First thing is to treat bigger bodied customers just like everyone else. Please don't assume that when a bigger bodied person walks into the door that they're looking for a leisure bike or they're looking for an e-bike. They might be, and that's wonderful, but treat them like you would everybody else. Ask questions, guide them to the equipment that's going to work best for them, and that's going to go a long way. The second thing is to know your products, including the weight limits. This is a project that we're working on, is to make the weight limits more transparent because we know that these are hard to find. And especially as Americans get bigger and are carrying kids, are carrying cargo, groceries, making sure that folks are staying within those weight limits to be safe is really important. I'd also encourage you to learn what accommodations can be made for bigger bodies and heavier bodies, whether that's custom wheels, or widening the Q factor for somebody who's got a bigger body, things like that. Get informed on what changes can be made. And we talk about bike fitting. Offer bike fitting to people of all sizes and shapes, even if they're not going for that 60-mile or that 100-mile fitness ride. Making sure that people are comfortable on their bike is super important. My fourth point here is to diversify your marketing images. Really reflect who you want to see in your shop. So whether that's on social media, if you're doing features of customers, reflect a wide diversity of people, both people in bigger bodies, smaller bodies, older people, younger people, people of different colors. Your marketing should really reflect who you want your customer base to be. And then finally, and this might be the biggest one, is to make it fun. As I mentioned before, people are really, really hungry for communities where they feel welcome and they feel like they are a part of something. So whatever you can do to cultivate that, inclusive social rides. I know a lot of shops have their fast lunchtime ride, but not a lot of shops have an inclusive social ride. encourage you to do film nights, non-bike specific activities, to really build that community. And we're here to help you with that. We have 14 chapters across the country. We just launched 5 more chapters in places like Des Moines, Minneapolis, Mississippi. We are all across the country, and we are here to help out. So if you are interested, we would love to lead a social ride with you. We would love to do something if we're in your area. So please reach out. There's my email, or just visit allbodiesonbikes.com. Thanks for listening.
Marley, thank you so much. Thanks for all the work that you do to help retailers and help suppliers make sure that we are equipped as an industry for the bigger body rider. Some important information was shared in that, and retailers who are attending, anyone who's listening to the recording, these resources exist. Pedal Kids, All Bodies on Bikes, reach out. Scott, Marley, their team, they're there to help. So let's go on. We're going to continue trekking through here. We've got topic number 2. Another really important topic, and they're so deep we could go on these, so we're just barely skimming the surface, but we will continue to grow on these conversations. Topic 2 is making cycling safer, building confidence, and just for riders on where to go. So the question is, how can we address the critical role of safety and reduce cyclist anxiety to increase bike usage and mileage? And what strategies, such as dedicated safe routes, trail systems, and developed infrastructure, can effectively drive this while boosting local bicycle sales? So basically, we want to make sure that people know where to ride, and that there are safe places to ride. So we have 3 speakers on this, and I'm going to start with Jeff Gindin of Cycling Designs. Jeff, thanks for being here. Jeff, you'll just have to unmute for us. Sorry, sometimes Zoom catches you up there.
Hi again, and thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. I think you're going to hear some overlap of where this is going, and maybe that's a good thing in a way. So let me start by saying that obviously increasing bike ridership invariably increases store sales. Fear and anxiety about bike safety, particularly getting hit by a car, are major impediments to increasing ridership among commuters, recreational cyclists, and especially the baby boomers who are trying to regain their youth on an e-bike. Non-riders simply say it's too damn dangerous out there. This isn't Europe, and recently I found out that my oldest granddaughter uses the city bike system in New York City to commute to work, but her ride is mostly on protected bike lanes. Study shows that bike lanes, infrastructure, makes a huge difference. I don't see how ridership and therefore store sales can increase substantially without getting people to have the confidence that they can ride safely. People will feel safe when we have infrastructure like protected bike lanes that provide separation from cars. Recognizing that distracted drivers will not always see a cyclist no matter how bright their kit, it is incumbent upon cyclists to take responsibility for their own safety. They do this by having full visibility of rear approaching vehicles. I think that there is an opportunity for bike stores to provide bike handling training and safety training. And we've heard about this already, but let me just continue the thought. Safety training is ingrained in many outdoor sports, such as scuba diving, kayaking, parachuting, and even hunting. Yet someone whose last experience on a bike was a Schwinn Stingray with a banana seat walks into your bike shop to buy a $3,000 to $5,000 bike, jumping into traffic with 3-ton vehicles doesn't appear to make sense. But it just might make sense if they are taught how to ride safely and how to have the right safety equipment. This raises the question of whether the area of concentration should be getting occasional cyclists to ride more, or should it be to get non-riders to actually ride? Reaching out to non-cyclists is obviously a tall order, but maybe there's a way to do this. Both, of course, will improve store traffic. So think about providing and selling free safety classes for adults and children. Think of it as a marketing and not a loss leader. Help people feel comfortable on their bikes, maybe practicing on a course in a parking lot, which we just heard about. The bottom line here is to reduce the anxiety associated with cycling, getting people to feel comfortable and gain confidence so that they will want to ride more. Infrastructure can take years or decades, but there's still a lot that can be done, and bike stores must play a critical role. Visibility, defensive riding, and training are just 3 ways that will help. Thank you.
Jeff, thank you. You make some great points there. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to lend their opinion and their insight to this. I'm taking some great notes. Thank you, Jeff. Our second speaker is Bruce Treader from Breedswear. Bruce, thanks for being here. Lots of screens. Excellent. Bruce, you're muted. You might want to just unmute your Zoom.
Bruce is still on mute.
Yeah,
There we go.
I'm
I just did. I just unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Bruce.
All right, you bet. You bet. Okay, I wanted to start with the foundation, and that is U.S. traffic crash data and what it means for pedestrians and cyclists, like we all are. So whether you've been driving, walking, running, or riding a bike, I'm sure you've asked the same question: how and why did road traffic get so dangerous so fast? Okay. Let's see. Move this guy. All right. You know what, let me see if I can, how do I move this thing?
Bruce,
Yeah, do you hear me?
no problem. Go down to the lower left.
Oh yeah, I see it. I see it. Got it. Okay, there we go. All right, great. So here's a big picture quote of, I'm going to back that up. Let's see. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Okay, here we go. Okay. So although the US population has grown continuously since 1975, and you can see it's a 65% increase over that time, the rate of crash deaths per 100,000 people in 2022 was 38% lower than it was 4 decades ago. In 2022, the overall per capita death rate increased 2.1% compared with 2021, and that had to do with COVID. Now, this graph right here shows what that looks like. So you can see a decline, but then you see a jump up recently. And then what you'll notice right here specifically regarding us as cyclists. Okay, here we go. So though overall traffic crashes have decreased slightly, pedestrian and cyclist deaths due to traffic crashes are rising. So you look at the number, I've condensed or I've truncated the tables to show 1975 to 2022. And you can see we're right back at 1975 levels. And actually, the League of American Bicycles estimated late last year, so 2024, that 1,149 bicyclists were killed in the US in 2023, which is the highest number ever recorded. For pedestrians, and we're all pedestrians, the situation is far bleaker. In 2019, there were 6,200 pedestrian deaths. That number rose to 7,500 in 2022. That's a 21% increase over the 3-year period and an 83% increase since the low point of 2009. Now, regarding injuries in 2022, approximately 67,000 pedestrians and over 46,000 bicyclists were injured in motor vehicle crashes. And I have to say, those are reported crashes. So I recently queried ChatGPT about the reason for increased traffic crashes between 2020 and 2024. So that's our most recent period. And you can see the highlights right here: changes in driving behavior, reduced law enforcement, road infrastructure challenges, increased pedestrian cycling activity. Now, a lot of those have to do with what was going on during COVID. Increase in miles traveled, vehicle-related factors, so size, and then onboard amenities are actually distractions. Public health and mental health factors, policy and resource gaps, Environmental factors, so storms, holiday travel, and then delays in adopting safety technologies. Those mostly have to do with technologies in cars. Now, ChatGPT gave this answer for suggested solutions. Addressing these issues will require a multifaceted approach, including improved enforcement, better road designs, public education, and advancement in vehicle technology. So my takeaway on this is that the status quo is unacceptable, but financially reliant mitigating solutions are currently unrealistic. So what I think is most important is that we need to address it from a cultural point of view. And though culture change is the highest bar to achieve for us as a society, it's most important to change behavior on our roads for the better, and something we can affect both through our bike and performance sports businesses and through civic involvement as individual citizens. And that is my takeaway.
Bruce, thank you so much. I see some stuff, some of the data you've shared. I definitely don't like to see those numbers, and it's alarming and startling. And I appreciate you bringing forward that so we could digest that. Definitely why we should be talking about solutions forward, what we can do as an industry at large. We do have one more speaker who will speak on this topic. I'd like to present George Lee from Rad Power Bikes.
Thanks, Eva. All this stuff ties together really well. I'm a parent. I got 2 kids in school. Activity is one of the things that we really focus on as a family. So we're quite an active family, and I've been in the bike industry for 25 years. Recently worked at Conti's in the East Coast, and as a local parent in a fairly small city, decided to start a bike bus 2 years ago. And if you don't know what bike bus is, it's just an organized ride, kids to school on a specific route at specific times with volunteer parents or teachers helping to get the kids to school, just an alternative mode of transportation. So for the last 2 years, every Friday, been hosting this. We run we got 2 routes that go to the high school and the middle school. It's the same campus. And then we got 1 route that goes to the elementary school. When we started, we had 3 or 4 kids, just friends of my kids. And the last bike bus of the summer in 2024, the school year, we had 90 kids at the high school on the bike bus. And what this does, right now in the winter, I'm just outside of DC. There's a lot of snow. We've canceled the one for tomorrow because the bike paths are icy and nobody clears them. What this has done is pretty incredible, because you're in a small community, everybody's local. We have the mayor's kid who joins us on the bike bus. So you make really good connections. And I started this while I was helping run bike shops. You make really good connections. Parents feel safe with their kids joining. A typical pattern is the parent will join for the first 2 or 3 bike buses, and then they let their kid go on their own with their friends, with the bike bus leaders. So you build this community. We host a WhatsApp group for any parents that are interested. Parents add other parents to the group. You grow this kind of network, and it's pretty incredible. The kids, they feel safe when they're riding. The parents feel confident with it. The kids grow confidence. They grow autonomy. It's basically like a play for them. We play music while we're riding, and it gives a great sense of freedom, and it enables kids to say, hey, Mom, I'm going to ride to Joey's house for the afternoon and get outside. And the shift has been phenomenal. Like if you go to the school now, we only do it once a week, but if you go to the school on any given day, there are far more bikes on the bike rack than there were prior to starting this in just 2 years. I wanted to give a couple of tips on how you can do it successfully. The first thing is you got to find a teacher in the school that is an advocate for cycling, or one of the administrative staff in the school. Typically, the PE teacher is the one that will be the most behind this type of idea, and then advocate for it to be pushed through school newsletters. They'll want to detach it from the school specifically for liability reasons. It's more of a parent-led thing, but they will help you promote it, and work with your local government as well to promote it, get it into any local newspapers. Marketing it to parents is actually the toughest thing. But then once you've done that, that actually gives you a foundation to say, hey, look, we're trying to get to the school. This section of road really needs a bike lane. So we've done that now in my local city. We've got this one area that is a high trafficked area for cyclists. And even more so now that the bike bus is running and has enabled more kids to ride to school. And the city is now allocating funds this year to build a bike lane for that. So you can, it really is like this groundswell and everybody loves it. It's super fun. The parents love it. The kids get a kick out of it every Friday. They always look forward to it. They're disappointed that they can't ride tomorrow, even though it's like 18 degrees and ice on the ground. So it's a really fun thing to do. If you want more information, there's a great organization that's just been started, a non-profit called Bike Bus World. I'll drop a link in the chat, or you can reach out to me. I've got a ton of experience doing it, and I'm just going to share a couple of photos for you. Friday mornings are normally my day when I'm the most happy, because I get to go out with, I've got to click share. Here we go. I get to go out with a bunch of kids from the schools, ride around and just enjoy a Friday morning. And honestly, the amount of kids now that go into the Conti's bike shop, which is on most of the kids' route to school, for things like flat fixes or picking up bikes, or parents. We've even had parents go from being car commuters to bike commuters after doing the bike bus for a few weeks and realizing that actually I should just probably turn around after this bike bus with the kids and just ride the rest of the way into the office. So it seems like it is a big commitment. You know, it's 45 minutes in the morning, 45 minutes in the afternoon every Friday, but it's something that has been tremendous for getting the kids outside, growing connections to the local government and cycling advocacy groups and parents, and all of that groundswell brings people into the retail stores. Thanks.
Wow, George, thank you so much. I did drop a link already to the Bike Bus World in the chat for you. I was looking it up as you were sharing it. There's resources on there to start one in your community, and looking at the photos and hearing from George firsthand, I think there is some value there for sure. It just probably feels great. There also was a share about U.S. Safe Routes to School offering grants from one of our attendees, which I put in the chat out to everyone as well. So lots of great things here, lots of great ideas. We'll keep it moving forward today. We'll go on to topic 3 now, which is breaking barriers, making cycling more accessible. So kind of piggybacking off of topic 1, the question is, what action can retailers take to address the cost and technology barriers to cycling, such as offering used bikes or hosting repair workshops? We've seen a big uptick in used bikes. I like this question a lot. Let's run speaker 1, Larry, again from Mount Airy Bicycles.
Hello. I thanks for setting that up, because there was a little bit of melding with topic number 1. They say that he who dies with the most bicycles still dies, but that is not stopping me from hoarding used bicycles. I would welcome another COVID if nobody would promise to get sick, okay? Because it was 1972 in my parking lot all over again. We went through about 500 bicycles in a couple of years, and I could actually walk down my warehouse instead of having to do the goose step. One side of my epitaph was going to say everybody rides a used bike, which is a fact. Everybody, rides a used bike. And the other side is going to say used is not a 4-letter word. My wife even married a used man, so I know that's okay. We do very well with used bikes. If it were up to me, that was all I would sell, if it were up to me. But we do represent some of the major bike brands here. We consider ourselves the brand. Used bikes are a good way to bring people into the fold and eliminate sticker shock. The ones that don't fit on our parking lot or in the shop, we keep the better ones here, and we keep other ones. And then we have a boneyard that we use where we donate a lot of bikes. Goodwill, unfortunately, is getting very picky. It used to be a place to rehabilitate people vocationally. Goodwill is not doing much of that anymore. There are these community bike organizations that recycle bikes. They're getting picky too. So we fix everyone up that comes in. My biggest joy here is refurbishing bikes. I've got a series of chemicals and techniques I use, and I can you've heard of Keystone. I think I can 3 and 4 and 5 stone some of these bikes. I do give a fair price. I don't try to steal them from people like CarMax might do with a car. But a used bike is a often better investment And I'm not knocking Cambodia, but when you say you can get this American-made, hand-built Trek for less than a new Cambodian bike, I let them do the judging. Okay, they make some fine bikes over there. But the used bikes for us have been a boon. Okay, and I've been doing it for 45 years. Unfortunately, I still have some of the bikes I bought 45 years ago. But during the pandemic, when I'd go to Florida to visit people and fix their bikes, I would either FedEx 10 bikes up or have somebody drive them up in a truck 10 at a time. We did this about 10 times. And I had bikes other people didn't. And there's a never ending supply. It's amazing. Unfortunately, 60% of the bikes bought during COVID aren't ridden. Okay, Bob might know something about that, but my venture to say 60%, it might be 50, are not being ridden anymore. We had bikes come in during COVID that had mold on the tire, mud on the tires, mold on the seat, and hay growing through the spokes. We fixed them up same day. So my biggest thing is jumping into I just got 3 bikes today between the 1940s and the 1960s. It gives me something to do on a winter day. Other things I've done for inclusivity, as I said in chapter 1, was the special needs. We all call it differently abled, handicap, special needs, adaptive. This is great. We also try to include as many people. 2 of us have learned sign language. It helps a lot. When I had my store in College Park, we had a lot of Gallaudet College students. We have a Spanish speaker. 2 of us speak Spanish. One guy speaks Russian. We had an Israeli speaker before he's moved on. And you just try to do as many things as you can. And I try not to send anybody to anybody else. If I can't do it, I'll find out how to do it. I want them to know that I care. And I mentioned in the chat when Bob gave his 12 commandments, I added one that this above all else, care about the customer and make sure they know you care about them. This is above customer service, okay? Price, cleanliness, organization, product knowledge, selection, variety, they're all good. But knowing that you care about them, that's huge. So try to care about as many as you can, even if it's on an individual basis, and try not to get too big. When you grow, consider growing vertically. I like this term, growing vertically instead of horizontally. Horizontally means a lot of volume. I find lower volume, more intensity, more focus has worked a whole lot better. And sadly to say, we don't have a business plan. And I do want to make a pitch for these working on these special events. Okay, show up at the event, volunteer your services. If it's fixing up used bikes for Christmas, volunteer your services. I go to these ability fairs when invited. I do workshops, events, and I like to, well, you use the word empower. We are possibility. When people come in, when they walk in and say, I was told I can't ride a bike anymore, and I don't believe it. I say it's time for another medical professional because you walked in here. Wouldn't you more enjoy a way to sit? Now we have stroke victims. We work with a lot of stroke victims on these tricycles, and a bicycle is one of the key pieces of athletic equipment for a stroke victim because your left leg makes your right leg go. Okay, we can put special brakes on one side, but if they walk, we have people that can barely walk out of their car. They plop down in their tricycle and they take off like a teenager. So when people walk in and say, I can't ride anymore, we have special kinds of pedals. We have pedal pendulums that I get from Haza Bikes, and who does a lot of adaptive work. It's called Rad Innovations in Vermont, and they do a lot of special needs, and they've helped us quite a bit. Hal Honeyman in St. Charles, Illinois, is another special need. So if they walk in and tell you they can't ride, do a little Columbo and look the other way and get them on a bike. I do want to give one little shout out for the, if there's any space left, there's more of this, my filibuster here. I'll be in the room at the P2 teaser workshop on Tuesday up at CABDA. And I'd like you to support the CABDA shows. I have been for years, even when I had to travel to Chicago. But try to get into that P2 group. I think there's just 2 or 3 spaces left. And I'll give you more of this when I get there. But you got to pay your way in, and I think Heather's still giving a discount. 5 minutes. Bye.
Thank you, Larry. Some great points there, stressing the importance of used bike sales and some tips to thrive. I really appreciate everyone volunteering their time today. We have another speaker on this topic of making cycling more accessible. Scott Fitzgerald from Pedal Kids has more to share. Thanks, Scott.
Awesome. Thanks, Heather. Well, I look at this topic from a different perspective, but I share all the same perspectives that Larry just shared as well. Could definitely sit I could listen to Larry, you need a podcast so I can like listen to you every day because I really love what you're doing.
We will partner up. You get famous, I get rich. Let's do it.
I'm in, but
All right.
I don't need the rich part. But so this technology barrier that I want to talk about is a huge barrier to cycling, and we see it every day, every class we run with kids. And I do believe it's holding the industry back quite a bit. Parents are really confused when they go to get their child into biking, which again, parents are really interested in doing for all the reasons that we talked about earlier. They run into this typical confusion. And sorry for the blurry photo here, but most bike shops in the country have this confusion going on. We're selling balance bikes right next to training wheels. And as an industry, we haven't adopted a balanced first method of teaching kids how to ride a bike. So we're trying to welcome parents and new riders into the sport for all the reasons that we know is important. And yet we don't know how to communicate the pathway of learning to these parents. And I think it's really interesting when Bob kicked us off talking about, which is the increase in the average price that we're seeing in bikes and the decrease in units, right? So I get it. Retailers are really struggling to survive off of the high-end sales. So square footage at stores is being allocated to higher price point bikes, and we're focused on the enthusiast customer who will pay for those bikes. But the downside is we are turning our attention away from those first touch customers who are oftentimes parents looking to get their kids into bikes. And if they walk into a store and the store doesn't really know how to communicate, how to teach a child how to ride, or even the technology around that, because training wheels are a piece of technology, right? Then we're not creating a welcoming environment and we're creating a barrier. So most of us in the bike industry who have kids or teach kids to ride like Larry has for decades, we know that balance first is the way to go. And yet we sell balance bikes all the time in bike stores right next to training wheel bikes. And if you just sample bike shop frontline employees next time you're in a shop, ask them about that. They don't know how to answer. And I get it, Bob and other brands are shipping these bikes with training wheels, and the bike assemblers just put the training wheels on because what's in the box gets put on the bike. And they also don't know how to display the bikes without training wheels on them. But it creates this huge barrier of confusion. We know that training wheels is a terrible way to learn how to ride a bike. It just is. Now, if we're talking about disabilities, training wheels have a place for sure. But it is not the way to teach a child how to ride a bike. It's not the way to teach an adult how to ride a bike. When you teach somebody to balance first, they have a lot of fun and enjoyment in the learning process. Watch a child ride on training wheels. It's not fun. It's a struggle bus. They barely can get going. They're wobbling around, and it's setting their internal gyroscope the wrong way. It teaches the opposite of balance. So when kids come into our classes, having been on training wheel bikes, we have to spend an incredible amount of time unraveling that balance that's been set incorrectly. So what can retailers do about this? Well, as an industry, we could really believe in the balance first method of learning to ride, not just individually, but collectively. We could develop marketing materials around that. We could develop learning pathways for our retail side of our industry around that. We could help product managers understand that. This training needs to happen. It needs to come from somewhere so that we can take this secret sauce and share it widely across the industry and really adopt it. And then we need to train our frontline staff on how to communicate it to customers, right? So that there is no confusion. If you're a parent in America and you walk into a bike shop, it's criminal if that bike shop employee doesn't know how to talk to you about teaching your kid how to ride a bike. If we're not the category experts, Who is? No one is, right? So we're leaving it to super volunteers, we're leaving it to nonprofits to try to carry this incredible burden of the industry, which is just getting more kids into the sport. Now, if we believed that kids didn't want to ride and bicycles are the new hula hoop and they're just not cool anymore, then yeah, then why bother, right? But it's not true. We work with kids all the time, and 99% of them, I swear I should do a better job tracking this data, but love the experience. Bikes are still really fun. Kids will put down the phones, they'll put down the video game controller to ride a bike if they're taught in a way that's fun. So we've got to make it fun. We've got to welcome people in. And we have to think about that from a technology standpoint. And we have to move past training wheels. Make them an accessory sale, make them an add-on sale, have them available for customers in the back. And I know this will take time. This is not an overnight fix. But if we are going to be dependent on the future generation of being, riders and enthusiasts in the sport, we've got to move past these training wheels. And I would love any opportunities to shift this conversation from what can the retailers do about this to what can the industry do about this? Because I think a lot of times in the bike industry, these these problems get pushed down to the retailer. Like what can the retailer do to help fix this, right? But how do we flip that script? And how can the brands, how can the nonprofits, how can the support mechanisms for retailers change the way they're thinking to support the retailers in this effort so the retailers don't have to carry the burden of trying to figure out how to get the next generation of people on bikes. All right, that's all I got.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott. Wow, what a great first panel event. I mean, we have our work cut out for us just looking at these three topics of inclusivity, safety, and accessibility. There's several topics we didn't have time to get into today, like bikes for transportation, the adaptive market, the role that the suppliers have, the role that retailers have, and how we can reach even more cyclists. So there's a lot we can get really granular here. And as this panel moves forward into our future conversations, we look to bring more of those topics forward, especially the transportation piece, which I think is a big one. So just in summary of what we experienced today, first, the extreme gratitude of the National Bicycle Dealers Association to our panel members. Very thankful to Bob for opening us up with really a summary of just the importance of this topic, looking at the data, getting those key insights, and seeing those 13 commercial rules for success. I mean, Bob is, we would consider him an expert. He's able to look at the market from not only the supplier view, but with the retailer in mind as well. Bob, I think, called me maybe 6, 7, maybe a year ago, 6, 7 months, maybe a year ago, and said, Heather, we need to work on growing ridership. It's very important. And I really listened to him, and this is the outcome of that conversation. So I do appreciate Bob giving insight to our industry, helping guide us to make sure that we're making great decisions. And when he tells me that this is an important topic for the industry at large, I'm listening to that. So I appreciate Bob sharing those insights, and we'll make those slides available. We started with that inclusivity. We talked about the adaptive. We talk about kids and youth. Marley shared all bodies on bikes about cultivating inclusivity for bigger bodies. There's a lot of opportunity for us there. I'd think about what you're doing if you're a retailer in your store practices. And if you're a supplier, even making sure that your products do provide opportunities for bigger bodies, or making sure that you connect with Marley so she can add your products to the list and the database that she has available. And if you don't have products now that fit that, talk to Marley. She can give you some insight. So this is about connecting you to the people within the industry who are here to help you. We talked about making cycling safer, reducing anxiety for the rider, as Jeff led us through an example of offering classes at your store to help teach people how to ride. We've seen people try to navigate an e-bike for the first time. It can be challenging, so making sure that they know how to ride and where to ride. And Bruce shared some important data on just those the numbers, and I hated to see them, of cyclists who are getting injured or worse when out riding. So we need to do something about making sure that we provide opportunities for safe routes, safe cycling. And the wonderful pictures George shared about the bike bus. I've already been on the website looking at it, and I appreciate George for lending that. And it is a fun opportunity to bring more people united, get more people excited about the sport of cycling. And hey, if people aren't even on that bike bus, if they're in their car driving and they witness it, they're going to be wondering what's happening over there, because that looks like a great time. And maybe we can even encourage more people to cycling from that. And finally, just breaking the barriers, opportunities when it comes to used bikes, when it comes to the industry, just looking at the products that we're bringing to market, when it comes to kids' bikes and the opportunity to move away from those training wheels and provide a better opportunity for our kids, for our future, to learn how to ride bikes and keep them involved in the sport. So there's a lot here. That's my summary of today. Thank you so much. Our next event is on Thursday, March 13th. We'll put a link in the Zoom. And once again, we'd love to have you at that event. How the events will progress here in the future is about 8 weeks prior to the event, we'll ask the NBDA community and we'll ask our panel members for topics that they'd like us to talk about, for topics that they'd like to have differing speakers bring their viewpoints. When you see those emails come from the NBDA, please let us know. We really want everyone to get involved. If you're an attendee today and you'd wish to be a panel member in the future, please just reach out, heather@nbda.com, and we can add you as a panel member. The more people who are taking an active role and we're growing this voice, the shared ideas of shared network of ideas, the better we can be at progressing forward and bringing more things forward to the industry. I want to thank you all. I want to say, everyone, have a great day. Let's keep focusing on how we can increase rider engagement and bring more people into our industry. Thank you so much all for your time. Have a great afternoon.